What's up, Dialed fam? Coach Derek here, and I'm gonna give you my top 5 movements for cyclists using only a kettlebell. First thing I like to do when I work out with kettlebells is get all of the rings and watches or anything off. I'm even gonna pop the hat off because I'll be moving around a lot. And I feel like it just prevents you from having anything slam or bind up. You know, some people just flip their watches over. Some people don't mind working out with rings on. I don't like it. And next you have to pick your kettlebell weight. I'm very blessed to have this entire option. This is my studio. I've trained people here for over 5 years. And so I have everything for people to use, but truthfully, you only need one. If you were to pick one kettlebell, you almost want to go a medium weight. Like if I had one to choose, I'd probably go a 16 kilo, which is just over 30 pounds, like 32. Ideally for the workouts you'll see today, you would have a couple different weight options. If you don't, that's okay. Just make sure you have like a medium weight. So I'm grabbing the medium for the first movement that we're doing. And just so you know, if you stick around until the end, I'm gonna actually lay all 5 of these movements out in a format that you can follow for an actual workout. Movement number 1 is a kettlebell arm bar. I love this movement because it's all about shoulder stability and mobility. We're also gonna hit the T-spine a little bit. Here's exactly what it looks like, and I'll give you a couple cues after I show you the first rep. So you're on your back. You're gonna press the kettlebell up overhead. Make sure the kettlebell is in a comfortable position on your forearm. And I'll tell you, if you're not used to doing this, it might be a little bit uncomfortable. And if it's at the point where it's stopping you from wanting to learn movements, throw a wristband on, throw a bandana around your arm. People do that in kettlebell certifications all the time, and it really helps you learn. So here's what it looks like. Reaching up. Give you one more. There we go. Now, a few things going on here. I'm gonna push through my foot initially and get the kettlebell reaching up toward the ceiling. Now from there, my arm is gonna slide up and I'm gonna transition my top leg over so that my toe goes on the ground. Now, when you're doing that, your shoulder is opening up, so we're potentially improving your own mobility, but you're having to stabilize this kettlebell. And I know I make it look somewhat easy, but it's because I've been doing this for so long. You'll see people try this and it starts pulling them back, pulling them forward. You'll know that feeling of stability when you experience it. So that's what we're working on. You wanna try and get your hip toward the ground, arm reaches up for clearance, and a big tip for stability and safety is to keep your eyes up on that kettlebell. After that, you're gonna do a few reps through the motion, and it's gonna be a perfect way to start a session. Movement number 2 is a traditional kettlebell swing, and I'm grabbing a heavier bell because I have it. A lot of the lower body movements are a little more effective with more weight. So I'm gonna show you 5 reps, and then I'll talk you through it. Now, a lot of people call that a traditional hard style swing. It's a traditional Russian kettlebell swing. You'll see the American versions, people going overhead. There's a lot of ways to do it. That's my favorite way. It's controlled, you have tension on the bell the whole time, and you can use your breath to get out a lot of power, to be honest. Now, you notice in my start position that it's out in front of me. This is called a hike. A lot of people mistake the start of their kettlebell swings because they start with it between their feet. They just pick it up and they do this weird floppy kind of hip motion to start it out. You don't want to do that. Start your first swing with a proper one by keeping it in front of you, pulling it back, and then packing shoulders, bracing your core, and pulling it in tight. Now you notice on that pull, you want to go tight into your crotch and literally have your wrist hit your thighs. If you're too low, it's gonna put unnecessary tension on your back, and you're probably gonna end up with a floppier swing than you want. Now, other than that, we're just doing an explosive hip hinge. So this is like a deadlift, but once it comes back, you're popping up and you're getting all the power from your hips. So if you don't feel this in your hamstrings and your glutes, and you're just feeling all back, most likely your form is gonna be off. So if you look at it from the side here, you'll notice I hip hinge back, which means hinging at the hip, or it's bending forward without rounding your spine. So hinging back, Hike position, pull the kettlebell, I pack my shoulders, brace my core, I can feel my glutes. Now from here, I pull it tight, pop the hips. Now, as I mentioned, it's a great movement for power, but it also builds muscular endurance. I think that's one thing that's interesting about kettlebells is that things can be very explosive and you can obviously go higher weight, less reps and focus on the power, or you can drop the weight back a little bit and get more muscular endurance, which to be honest is the way that I typically like to do it. Now, movement number 3 is a high pull. You can go back to your medium weight. To be honest, I know that I'm a weight right in between, and just because I have it, I'm grabbing a 20 kilo. So let me show you a few reps of the high pull, and then I'll explain exactly why it's so great for cycling. Transition. Now, you can see you're working a lot of the same muscles in a similar movement as you were on the kettlebell swing, but now we have one arm on the bell. As soon as you do that, your swing twists a little bit, which really means that you're gonna hit the obliques more than you would on a traditional swing. And even though it's lighter, it's that little rotation that you're gonna notice. Now you still wanna keep the bell tight, and what I'd recommend thinking about is that your hips don't move or twist or rotate to accommodate for just one hand on the bell. It's just your upper back. So once you're in the hip hinge, everything down here is the same. You just rotate slightly, and that allows it to give you the clearance. Now you also notice my arm typically is back here, kind of swinging with it. This is just helping keep you balanced and help open you up. So don't think that it's crazy looking or insignificant about what you do with the other arm. You certainly don't want to just like keep it on your hip, okay? So you do your swing, and instead of just stopping here, you're actually adding a pull in at the top. When you do that, you should feel your lats in your back, and I almost don't even need to explain why this is so obvious for cycling. It's like you ripping on your bars in a sprint. You come up, you pull, it's single-sided, you're pushing through your feet, your core is bracing and stabilizing, and then you're reversing the motion, and that's all deceleration. So, these are just the type of movements I do. And I will go sprint on my bike and be like, this is why high pulls are so good. You can feel it in real time. And that's why I love my job, man. This is so cool. So I'm gonna show you a couple more reps. And notice you can do the transition swing or you can just set it back down. You know, either way works, but the transition's a cool way to keep up the muscular endurance. So it's in front, I pull it tight. Almost did it wrong. One other thing to think about is pushing the bell back into the swing. So when you are doing your pull, you can't let the gravity just take this or it's just gonna flop back down. When you pull it back, you need to push it back into the swing. And you'll notice if you try and punch it straight forward, you'll be like off of your pendulum. You won't have the centrifugal force helping you here. You need to push it back into that circle. I don't know if that all made sense from a logical perspective. I don't know what's happening. I'm getting tired. But that's how you do a high pull. Okay, number 4, we're going kettlebell windmills. Now, this one, weight-wise, I'm probably gonna go a little bit lighter. Once I warmed up, I'd probably go more toward the 20 kilo, but this one is totally overhead and a little bit more complex. Here's what it looks like. I'll show you the other side real quick. Always have a harder time on this side. And that's the beauty of some of these unilateral movements. You really find out what side is more stable than the other. This still has a torn rotator cuff from like 10 years ago, so always something I gotta be careful of. And if you have an injury on one side, don't think you're less of an athlete. I think the best athletes in the world probably have more injuries than anybody. They have to deal with this stuff all the time. So anyways, that's a windmill. And the reason this translates so well to the bike is for similar reasons as the single arm high pull. You know, it works parts of your core that you almost can't get from even an isolated core movement because you're bracing and you're moving at the same time. And those are movements that you have to do to be at your best on the bike. It's learning how to power transfer. So you're holding this bell overhead. You can see why the arm bar is a great way to start a session if you're doing this, because you want to keep your eyes up on the bell. It's a similar range of motion, but now you're overhead and you're actually hip hinging to the side. So the thing that's so unique about a windmill opposed to even a kettlebell swing, instead of that forward and back hip hinge, you're literally pushing your hips back at like 90 degrees. So if I was in a box, I'd be pushing my hip back to my, I guess, the right back corner of the box. Now, you might have noticed I shifted my feet. That can help that hinge feel a little bit more comfortable. Sometimes too, you can feel some pinch in your hips. And if turning your foot a little more or a little less helps that, I would do it. Now, like a normal hip hinge, you don't want the weight to get too far in front of you. I mean, same thing with a deadlift. You always want the weight almost between your feet. With this windmill, you want to make sure you don't reach out in front of you because that's going to put unnecessary strain on your back. And it's just a danger. It's a risk we don't need to take. So to avoid that, to mitigate it, here's how to do it correctly. You take your arm and you're gonna slide it down the inside of your leg. And I would just keep contact with this arm on the inside of this leg the whole time. And that way you'll know you're not getting too far ahead of yourself. All right, so I'll show you a couple more reps on each side. And by the way, I just gotta say, this is one of those movements where you do it and you're like, wow, I have never hit that part of my core before. That's why I love it so much. I'll give you guys some bonus. This is what I do for a lot of workouts is add a press. If you want more shoulder, less core, you add a double press. Okay, we're gonna go to the other side. If you want more legs and less shoulder, you can add a weight to your lower hand and you can play with that a lot. That'll load up your back more and your legs. The more weight that's in your upper hand, the more it focuses on your shoulder. A lot of really cool ways to modify this thing. Lastly, if you're having a hard time getting that full range of motion, you can put another kettlebell down here and stop before you hit the ground. Just tap that. It's less range of motion, but if that means you do it with more quality form, I'm all for it. Last but not least, movement number 5, the Turkish Get Up. Now, if you're familiar with that, you'll probably know right away. This movement deserves its own video because it's so complex, it's long, there's so many steps in it, but I really want to introduce it to you guys because this is one of those movements where if I had to answer the question that you always get as a trainer, what's the number one thing you should do or best exercise? This really might be it, but it's kind of a cheat because you're almost doing like 4 exercises in one. Let me show you what I mean. Oh, by the way, start out with your lighter weight while you learn the form. You can even do this without a weight, but even if you have like an 8 kilo in your hand, just to learn it, it's probably a good idea. So we're doing this side because it's my better side. Now notice when I go to grab the weight, this is really with all ground movements, even that arm bar in the beginning, it's good to take both hands and pull it tight into your chest because if you're out here with the heavy weight and you just try and pull it over, I mean, you're just like asking to blow your rotator cuff out. So I would recommend against that. Grab it with 2 hands, lean into it, pull it tight into your chest. And from there, you can even give yourself some assistance on the press up. Adjust the kettlebell if you need to. Now here we go. This is a full rep of a Turkish Get Up. And then you reverse it. You see what I mean? It's a cheat code when someone asks you what one movement you would do, because it's like 5 different things. So let's do another rep, and I'm gonna break it down step by step for you guys on what to do. We already went over the start. You press it up. Now, similar to that arm bar, you're gonna push into this foot and then you're gonna roll onto this elbow, but it's gonna require one motion where you reach up toward the ceiling, almost use your abs like a sit-up, and push through your foot at the same time. Even if you need to move your foot further out, that's okay. Once it gets really heavy, that's when I start doing that. So I'm here, up, pushing into the elbow. Now I push into my elbow, drive up to get to my palm. Now from here, I'm gonna drive my hips up toward the ceiling, and I'm gonna be on the back of this heel. So leg is straight, I drive in, the planted foot right here. This leg, I'm pushing hard, I'm feeling my glutes as I drive up. Now I gotta bring this extended leg underneath me. So I bring it under to the knee. Notice my eyes, I'm still looking up at the kettlebell. This is where you have two transition options, but I'm just showing you this first one, is you step up and you pivot to get to a half kneeling position. So my whole body turned, now I'm facing forward, I can bring my eyes forward, I do a lunge, I bring it back down, and then foot goes out, I look up at the bell, plant the hand at the same time. That's a big motion to follow. I'm gonna show you one more time. I should have picked a lighter weight for demo. Turn, here, hips are up, drop to your butt, elbow, back. And dude, my freaking shoulder is burning. Absolutely beautiful movement. I told you there's two ways to transition. I'm just gonna show you the other way because I used to do it. I actually stopped. I'll tell you why I stopped doing it. So you're here, you're up. You go to this position, you get that knee under you. Now, you can actually just twist this knee on the ground, twist it, just like that. And the reason I stopped was because this is such rough turf that it just like grinds the skin off your knee. And I was sick of doing that transition. So instead of that, you just bring this front leg around and it's just a lot more comfortable on the planted knee. That's why I like to do it that way. I don't think really one's better than the other because they're both you turning your body. So that's a Turkish Get Up. Now, to be honest, it's a movement that you can do it at any time during a workout, but it's rare you're gonna do it in the middle of a workout. It's like a really good finisher, or it's a really good warm-up if you go light. So I'd probably tack it on to the beginning or to the end. For this one, it's gonna be to the end. And that actually segues us perfectly for you to see this workout on the screen with all the reps, the circuits, and how you do it. So here's how I would format the workout. I would actually separate the arm bars as their own round, and I would do 4 reps on the right arm, 4 reps on the left arm, and repeat that one more time. So that's where the ×2 comes in. 2 rounds through it, you're gonna feel nice and warmed up going into the strength round. Now for the strength round, you're gonna start out with the kettlebell swings. You're gonna have 8 reps, immediately followed by the high pulls, which is gonna be 8 reps on each arm. So a little bit higher volume there. Then we go into the windmills, 4 reps on each arm, and it's a lower number because I want you to specifically slow down, focus on the movement, and not rush. You're gonna get 3 rounds through that circuit. What was that? It was like you 3 rounds through that circuit. Try and do it with minimal rest. I wouldn't rest more than 90 seconds between each exercise. And so once that circuit is done, then you can go to the Turkish Get Ups. It's a perfect finisher. You're gonna do, just like the warm-up, 4 on each side, twice. After that, total body, incredible kettlebell workout for cyclists. I hope you guys love it. And if you do, please comment down below that you just enjoyed this content, that it's useful, that it's helpful. Please share it to your social media or just share it directly with a friend. Hit me with a thumbs up. Make sure you're subscribed. And if you want some bonus points, hit the bell icon. You can do all these things. And I hope you do, you guys. Come on now, this was a free video. You know, help your boy out.